morning, everybody. You're very welcome to this morning's webinar, and I hope you enjoy it. With many elements of the economy reopening over the coming weeks and months, the local enterprise offices are working closely with their clients to ensure that they are best prepared to make the most of it. To complement the training and mentoring that each LEO is engaged in to assist their clients with the reopening, the LEOs have agreed a partnership with Google Digital Garage to deliver a series of webinars. These 5 expert-led webinars will cover a range of topics that are vital to a business online. This will enable LEO clients to best position their business online as the economy continues to reopen. The training is the first element of this year's Look for Local campaign by the LEOs. Having run initially in November and December of last year, the Look for Local campaign encouraged people to look in their own locality for goods and services. The new campaign, which is being developed, will run in July and will again spotlight LEO clients across the country. The training will ensure LEO clients are in the best possible position to maximize the exposure that the campaign will bring across the country. This morning's webinar is focused on search engine optimization, or SEO. This can be a little overwhelming for many, but this will give you a good start. Key learnings will be around understanding how search engines work and what SEO is all about. The key outcome for your business is understanding these key pillars of SEO and what you can do to improve your website visibility on search engines. I hope that all of you will find today's webinar both useful and interesting, and maybe demystifying the world of SEO. Please join us for the remaining sessions covering topics such as making your website work for you and getting started with analytics. And remember, if you missed the previous sessions on digital strategy and getting your business visible online, why not check out our YouTube channel and dial them back up. Without further ado, I will hand over to our trainer. Thank you.
Welcome everybody to today's session on Get Started with SEO. Today's webinar, as we've already heard, is a collaboration between the local enterprise offices and Google Digital Garage as part of the upcoming Look for Local campaign to help best prepare your business to maximise all opportunities for the rest of the year. My name's Emma. I'm an experienced trainer for Google's skills training program, Google Digital Garage, and alongside me today we also have Sarah, who's an experienced trainer with the program too. She is in the chat. I'm sure some of you have met her already, and she will be sharing some links as we go through, as well as keeping an eye out for your questions. So please do share your questions in the chat as we go. She'll be able to answer some there and also save some for me for some of our Q&As as we go through. If there happens to be more than one Sarah today, you can spot her by the blue spanner next to her name as well. So do say hello if you haven't already. And a bit of quick housekeeping while you all introduce yourselves in the chat. Firstly, if you're having any trouble viewing at any point, do try refreshing the screen. That normally fixes the majority of small issues you might come across, any connection issues, or if the audio and video isn't syncing up for you, do try refreshing. If you would like to join the chat today and you haven't yet, you should see the option to sign in or create an account. If you see the chat already, great, you're already signed in. But if not, it'll just take a few seconds to create an account by clicking in the box, either on the right of your screen on desktop or underneath the video if you're on mobile. We will be pausing throughout the session, as I've mentioned, to answer some questions. So please do feel free to fire away. Don't have to wait for the Q&A to pop up on the screen. You can ask your questions throughout, and we'll try and get to as many as we can today. And we are running a couple more in this series. We're halfway through. So our next 2 are on websites and then analytics over the next 2 weeks. If you'd like to check those out, you can find the link in the description box below this video throughout the whole session today. And Sarah's also shared that in the chat as well. And do feel free to check out the new Google for Small Business website, which is a one-stop shop for products, tools, and training to help move your business forward. We've got a simple step-by-step online success guide to help you show up on Google, so what we're talking about today, create or improve a website, which is what we're talking about next week, and reach more customers and build loyalty. Sarah can share a link in the chat, and there's also a link in the description box as well that you can grab at any time, including after this session has finished. And lastly, if you do have any feedback from today's session, if you can complete the feedback form that we'll share at the end and is also linked in the description box, you'll get a link to download today's content in a PDF format, and this video will also be will be available for you to rewatch too. So feel free to take notes as you go, but if you do want to revisit either the slides or the video itself, you'll be able to do that. So today we're going to be looking at understanding how search engines work, getting started with SEO, so understanding the benefits it can bring and how you can get started, some top tips, whether you've tried it before or it's something you're completely new to. And finally, optimizing your SEO strategy for success. And we'll look at some key techniques for both on-page and off-page SEO, and I'll explain what we mean by that later, which will help to optimize your SEO strategy and maximize your ROI. So before we begin properly, I'd love to know, how do you currently market your goods and services? So I'll give you a moment. I'm a little bit ahead of you here, and there's a bit of a delay, so I'll give you a minute to type some things in there. Let me know, how do you currently market your business? Are you already using SEO? Is it something completely different, like social media, for example? And I'm going to go through how we understand how search engines work while you guys are answering that in the chat. So the primary purpose of a search engine is really to show the most relevant results to the searcher. It's that simple. And Google's mission is to make all information available and usable worldwide. The information presented by search engines takes many forms, and it's a tool used by lots of people to navigate the internet, to find answers to their questions, and to find information about businesses, products, and services as well. So Google wants to give you as a user the best experience by providing the most relevant search results based on what you typed in, the word or phrase or the search query that you typed into Google in the first place. So this whole system that we're going to talk about now has been developed to best serve the user and to answer the search query as relevantly as possible, really. So if you're designing a website and creating content that's really aimed at your customer, you're already going in the right direction. There's some benefits for you thinking about SEO. Firstly, you can reach both a global and local audience. Maybe you're looking just to reach people in your local area or nationally, or you're looking at something more international. And people all over the world search for things. That might sound obvious, but when you think about how you can get in front of people, it's a really great way to get in front of those people who are already typing in something around your industry, product, or service area. It can help you to increase footfall if you are a local business, thinking about reopening process and how do we get more people back in. You can get in front of those people who are already in your local area and what might be planning a visit later in the year, and also thinking about online revenue or online bookings or whatever your website is built to do as well, depending on your type of business. So increasing both in-person and online traffic can help you to connect and communicate with customers just by increasing your visibility, but also by encouraging people to leave reviews and interact with you through your website. And you can learn more about your customers too. You can use the insights that you get from SEO to understand search trends and patterns. And we'll talk a bit more about using data in our final session. I hope I've got these the right way around in a couple of weeks on analytics. So the search engine algorithm is effectively a mathematical formula. Google engineers spend every day testing this and running experiments and making improvements to the search algorithm. And this basically is a mathematical formula with countless factors that aren't revealed exactly. So we never see the exact algorithm, but we do get guidelines released that you can see and that are published for you to read about what the algorithm is taking into account. So you'll get basically clues and guidelines as to what's important to the search engine. And this is then used to determine organic ranking. So when somebody searches for something, this algorithm is applied to decide exactly what's the most important or the most relevant pages are for that particular search. And this is every single time a search takes place. So it's not a set in stone, you're at the top of Google. You might hear people refer to it as, we can get you to the top of Google. This algorithm is applied each time for each individual search that happens. So while we can't give you specific signals of the algorithm because it's not released, the exact algorithm isn't revealed, and it wouldn't be something that we could understand in the same sense as guidelines anyway, we're going to give you some advice for focusing on creating high quality sites that create a good user experience and employ some really great SEO methods that you can actually put into practice that are still focused on the user. You're not trying to game the system. So how do they work? What's actually going on behind the scenes of this algorithm and the whole process? Well, firstly, a spider crawls the internet. We're talking about Google spiders here, but this would be true for any search engine. They all work in a similar way. So spider crawls the internet and they're visiting your site as well as many others and going from page to page. So following links from page to page to establish what pages are connected to each other and what's actually happening on your site. Then all of that information is indexed or basically saved in a search engine database. Once your page is in that index, it's effectively eligible to show up in search results. Then when the user enters a search query, so steps 5 and 6 are happening multiple times a millisecond. When somebody enters that search query, Google's looking at that search engine database, applying the algorithm and showing the most relevant websites and other types of results on a search engine results page. And this is what that page looks like. I'm sure something you've all seen before, whether for Google or other search engines. And we've split this into 3 sections just so we can talk through the 3 main areas that appear. Of course, these do look slightly different depending what you've searched for, but this is the basic layout. At the top, we always have the search query or search term or keyword. So this is the word or phrase that somebody has typed in to the search engine. In this case, it's best compact camera for travel. Then we may have some ads. They don't always appear, but when they do, this is often what they look like. In this case, we've done a product-related search, so we're seeing some shopping ads. These are the 5 ads you see with pictures across the top of the frame. We also have one text ad underneath, and both of these are marked as sponsored or ad, so we can, even without this blue line that's there for our benefit, we'd be able to tell the difference. You might also see some text ad results at the bottom of the page. You might not see shopping results if it's not a product search, so this section can look a little different. And then we have the organic search listings in the green here. Obviously, we've cut this off, but this will be the whole center well of the page, and this could include standard website page listings and links to those pages that Google thinks the most relevant, in this case around the topic of best compact cameras for travel. It could also include maps listings as well. If we'd searched for best camera shop near me, for example, that would look a little different. And we can see news results, images, videos, and all sorts of other things in that section as well. So these are some other examples because, as I said, the search engine results page doesn't always look the same. So we've got the top one here, clothes shops near me, more of a local search term. So we've got some maps showing up instead here at the top. Underneath, we've got another product-focused search, but the layout is a little different. So we've searched shoes online, and this time we're getting those shopping ads over to the right, and we've got 3 ads, and then we'd have the organic results where we've cut off the screenshot underneath. And of course, we can also see PDF showing up here. So if someone's searching for a menu, for example, or a certain type of file, we could see images, videos, and other types of ads appearing as well. So let's see if we've got any questions. And I can see that we've had a lot of people share how they market their business. So we've got Bandon Co-op Retail and Garden Centre saying SEO, social media and advertising, Lots Furnishing saying SEO, social media and Google Shopping. So they're the ads that we just saw. Karen Hanley, SEO and social media. Anna's saying predominantly using social media, Facebook and Instagram. Caroline also social media. And Pauline using websites who market your service, so maybe more like affiliates or partnerships there. Can't see any questions at the moment. We are quite early on, but do keep sharing if you have any questions as we go through the next section, which is on how to actually get started with SEO. So search engine optimization, probably better known as SEO, is the practice of improving the ranking of your website by making it more visible and relevant to search engines without paying for clicks or ads. So we've seen the whole search engine results page so far, and we did see the ads on there. That's not really what we're going to be focusing on today. We're going to be looking at what you can do to get more visible without paying for those ads. You may choose to use both, a combination, like somebody just said, Lots Furnishings for saying they use SEO and Google Shopping ads. So you may choose to use both, but we're going to focus on SEO today and how you can firstly appear in search results if you're a newer website and you're not appearing anywhere yet, but also improving those rankings and what you're showing up for over time. So the benefits of SEO, firstly, converting those visitors into customers. Search really helps you attract the right people, not just a lot of people, although it can do, but the people who are actually searching for what you do, whether that's products, services, asking questions, or looking for a specific type of business. So it can be really cost-effective marketing because you're putting all of your energy and SEO into reaching those people who are already searching for the thing. You're not trying to convince them that they need your product or service. They're already looking for it. It can help you to increase brand awareness and visibility. So yes, some people will search for your business by name, and that would also fall under SEO if you're appearing for your own business name. But there's also people who'll be searching for the examples that we showed, best compact cameras, shoes online, clothes shop near me. and those people aren't looking for a specific business, but you showing up in those search results can help them to find a business maybe local to them or that sells the right products or services. It can also help you to obtain a higher position. So even once you've already got that visibility, you still would look at SEO, and firstly, because new websites are popping up all the time and the competition levels might be changing, but also to make sure that you're always looking at trying to get that higher position and become more and more relevant to your customers. And of course, all of this helps you to get more relevant traffic to your website or even through the door if you're looking at footfall. So the golden rule of SEO, and we're going to look at kind of both sides of this today, is to write for the customer and for the spider, for those robots who are crawling your site. So why we have these two different sections is because a lot of people do focus on one or the other. So people will get really involved in SEO and all the techniques and tactics that you might read about, and they'll just find themselves writing for Google, writing for the spiders. But actually your content should always be for the customer. They're the end goal. They're the people who are going to read the content, engage with it, and hopefully buy from you. So you really should be writing for them, but just using some of the technical elements we'll talk about today to help search engines understand that content as well. So we need to use both approaches here. If you just write for the customer and don't think about SEO at all, then it might be that it's great content, but it's not something that search engines understand. And if you just write for the spider, it might be something that doesn't really make sense to the customer or looks very much like it's been written for SEO purposes. And I'm sure we've all come across content like that feels like it's just trying to fill a gap. So we're going to look at balancing these two. And our first step that we would recommend is signing up for a tool called Search Console. This is available at no charge. You sign up with an existing Google account if you have one, or you can quickly create one. And it allows you to do three basic things when you first get set up. Firstly, tell Google what your website is. Secondly, monitor how you're already doing in search. So maybe even if you haven't looked at SEO before, and I know that some of you are already doing it, you'll see that you might be appearing in search results anyway, because you're naturally creating content that is relevant to people who are searching. So you can see where you are at the moment, and that gives you a good baseline to see what's doing well, what's not doing so well, where could you improve. And you can also then get alerts on any critical issues. So if a page goes missing, or Google's finding it hard to crawl your site for some reason, or any errors that pop up along the way, you can get alerts on those and hopefully fix them. So step 2 is potentially submitting a sitemap. You may have a sitemap already created. We'll talk a bit more about this at the end, because there are 2 different types of sitemap, and Google only accept one of them through Search Console. So we'll talk a bit more about those formats later. But this can be really important to help Google see basically a list of all of your pages, a map of your site, so you can tell from the name. So this gives Google a good way to navigate your site and make sure no pages are missing from its index of your site. You can think about how to then promote your existing content, both on and offline, and also share new content. So create new content around new trends within your industry, questions your customers are asking, or new products and services that you offer that maybe you didn't before. And step 3 is the second part of this 2-step rule that we talked about, which is making sure that Google can understand your content. One of the great things you can do to get started, that's quite a simple thing to do, it might be a big task if you have a lot of pages, but it's quite straightforward, is to just check through your page titles. So if you're looking for one small thing to do, this could be a great starting point. Check all of your page titles. Check all of your pages actually have titles in the first place. They might have a sort of default title that was just added that you weren't really aware of. Check that they're all accurate. They do describe what's on the page, and check that they're all unique as well. You can also create good meta descriptions and snippets. So this is the couple of sentences that you might see in search results underneath that page title that tell users and Google a bit about the page. So again, this should be written for humans. I do see people sometimes listing a load of keywords in here. It should be sentences written for a human to read. But you can check through these and make sure that firstly, your pages have them. And secondly, that they make sense for the page, they are up to date, they are reflecting the content on the page, and that they're including any key sort of topic words in there too. You can create these in a few different places. It does depend on your website platform. So if you have WordPress, for example, you could use a plugin to create these. If you're using Shopify, Wix, Squarespace, any of the big web platforms, for example, you can look for somewhere in the page settings where it's got a box for the snippet or meta description. If you can't find it, usually the support for your website platform will be able to point you in the right direction. And if you have any very text-heavy pages, you can think about using heading tags to split that up. In the same way you would if you were writing, any kind of long document, you might use those heading tags to split up the sections, and they help to tell search engines what's in each section. So give a title to each section. There's some top tips for getting started. Once you've set up Search Console and maybe done those basic checks of the page titles, the snippets, run some keyword research. So this helps you to understand and discover words and phrases that people are looking for. Even if you've done this before, the reason we include this as a top tip anyway is that these phrases change. People are looking for different products and services. Their behavior patterns change, especially over the last year. A lot of people are searching very differently to how they were before. And your industry just changes as well. Depending what type of industry you're in, you might find these are very fast changes or slower changes, but it's likely that over time you do introduce new products and services. Then once you have those keywords, and we'll talk a bit more about how to do this in a moment, you can think about how to publish useful, high quality content around those topic areas. So if you know, for example, that people might be searching for a gluten-free cafe, you can make sure that you have something on your site that includes the words gluten-free and talks about your gluten-free menu and the options that you have. So that's going to be useful for the people who are searching for that topic. And finally, make sure that those new pages, we've talked about you're checking your old pages, but make sure those new pages are also search friendly. So you've got the title, the meta description, and those headings and subheadings if it's a bit longer. So a reminder of what a keyword is. It's a word or phrase that's used to match your website and adds to the terms that users are searching for. And specifically, we're talking about the website and organic results, but it does work for the ads as well. So if you're going through this keyword research process, it's going to be helpful for both search ads and for SEO at the same time. So if somebody was to search for a local restaurant, in fact, let's see what you would do if you were searching, you want to go somewhere tonight. What would you type in if you were searching for a local restaurant? So would you type in just restaurant? Would you type in your local area? Imagine you were able to go out tonight and you were looking for something fairly local to you. What kind of words and phrases would you use personally? It'd be interesting to see the mixture. So I would be looking for something maybe local to me. So I might use near me in there. I might be looking for a vegetarian restaurant, for example, or I might be looking for maybe I fancy something specific. So Indian restaurant near me. So feel free to be creative here. What would you look for if you were able to go somewhere tonight and you were looking for some options locally? I'll move on for now and I'll come back and see what you've all typed in for your restaurants. So to help with the process of identifying those keywords, I mean, you can do what we've just done and get into your customers' heads and imagine you're the person looking for that service or product and what would you type in? That's a great way to get started. So think about the different words and phrases they might use, their different customer journey paths as well. So they might type in something very different at the beginning of their search than towards the end when they're a bit more specific as to what they want. You can use keyword research tools such as the Google Keyword Planner that's within the Google Ads platform, but it is available at no charge. You don't have to be running a campaign. You just need a Google Ads account to be able to use it. And that will help you to identify new words and phrases, but also put in the ones that you've brainstormed and see the search volumes as well. So find out what people are actually searching for. Does that match? Or maybe they're using slightly different phrasing than you would expect. And you can also create combinations, so you can mix and match these phrases to create longer keywords that people might use in different combinations. So let's have a look at how this would work. We're looking for a boutique independent clothes store in Dublin. And we might look at 3 different areas here. So we've got keywords related to the type of business. So it's a clothes shop, a boutique. So you might use clothes shop, fashion, designer, boutique. You might even use specific types of clothes there, like dress, for example. Because we're a local business and we want people to come in through the door, we might use some location-related keywords as well. So people searching for us are likely typing in something like Dublin because that's where we're based. And then you can combine all of these. So you can combine all the different business-related keywords and location-related keywords to mix and match them to find those longer areas that people might be searching for, so different topics. And you could even make these longer and combine 2 or 3 of these words. So you can mix and match the different areas. I can see, just to use this example of the restaurant, we've got restaurants in Cork. We've got use Google Maps and search that way for restaurants. Yeah, absolutely, that's a different way. Eating out. So we've got a couple of people actually adding their specific, I'm assuming your specific location to that. So a few different areas there. So you've done the same thing here, right, where you've used something related to restaurants, outdoor dining, so another business-related keyword or phrase. You might use something like the word menu as well if you're looking to actually look at the menus, or something more specific like family-friendly, gluten-free, vegetarian. So you can mix and match all of these different keywords to come up with the different areas that your customers might be searching for. So we've looked at fashion and restaurants as examples, but do apply this to your own business area and think about what people could be looking for. And this is just around the main business type, but you could also repeat this process for your products or services as well. So what would people be searching for around specific products or services, like best compact camera for travel? So those get even more specific. You can imagine for somebody selling hundreds of products, you'd have potentially thousands of keywords that people might be searching for. But it's not all about just the keywords though and the relevancy. That's a big important part. But there are a few other elements to think about that can help you when you're improving your search engine rankings. The first one is trust. So this is when users feel like you are a reputable website, trustworthy, you've got a good reputation. Maybe you're sharing your knowledge, providing information about who you are as well. So businesses with things like an address, for example, or contact details. If you have things like financial transactions taking place on your site, it's really important to make sure you have information about things like customer service, returns, resolving issues, and also to make sure that you have a secure checkout page as well. Maybe you're using a payment provider that people know of and trust. So all of these elements can help to build that trust with your users, whether they're new or existing users. You can also showcase your expertise as well. This is another important factor, expertise and authoritativeness, quite a difficult word to say that, of your site. And this is basically an indication to Google of the quality of your site. So ensure that content in your site is created or edited by people with expertise in the topic area. That might be yourself, it might be colleagues or business partners or employees, or it could be that you actually outsource some of your content as well to get that level of expertise for the particular topic area. Make sure you're using reputable sources and citing any data. So if you are writing things like blog posts or you're writing about your industry knowledge, if you are using quotes or facts from elsewhere, make sure you are citing those. And make sure you're taking effort, time, expertise, talent, and skill for your content. All of these factors are really important. You don't want to rush out content just for the sake of SEO, because then it's not necessarily going to be the highest quality or the most useful for the user. So we've gone back to our 2-part rule again. Yes, you do want to get more content published, but you also want to make sure it's high quality for the user and that it's actually interesting and useful for them. And do avoid displaying too many ads. You may have ads on your site depending the type of business that you have. Try and avoid displaying too many on there so they're not distracting from the main content. Also, if you have anything like pop-ups on your site, maybe asking somebody to subscribe to your email newsletter, for example, make sure anything like that isn't getting in the way of navigation or is covering up the important information that they're there to see. So these are just 3 other factors, as well as the keywords and writing the content itself and creating those pages. Are really important for Google to understand the quality of your site. So everything we've talked about so far could apply to either global or local SEO, but let's talk a bit more specifically about local SEO, because I know that will be important to a lot of the businesses we have here today. And local SEO is all about appearing specifically in those local search results and connecting with customers who are either already nearby or looking in your local area. So this could be when people are typing in some of those examples you've already shared with your local area written in the search term, or they could also be using terms like nearby or near me. So this is a key way of getting in front of that specific audience, not just that general audience searching for what you do, but people specifically searching for your area. So one of the ways you can improve your visibility in local search results is to create a Google My Business listing. So this is available at no charge. you can create a listing from scratch, or you might already have a listing that either you've created before or has been created automatically that you can claim. You can do this through business.google.com, and that's also where you log in to edit your listing as well. So whether you're new to this or you already got a listing that maybe you forgot about or hasn't been updated for a while, if you go to business.google.com, you can either start the creation process or manage your existing listing there. You can also use the Google My Business app. So that's another way if you prefer, and you can of course use a combination of the two to manage your listing in future as well. You provide your initial contact details, things like your address, website, if you have a phone number for customers to use as well as things like the category of your business too. So some basic information to help build that listing to start with, as well as, of course, your business name, which is the first thing you'll be asked for. You might also want to think about then advertising your business in other local search directories as well. So have a look at what's near you. Do look at the Look for Local campaign as well and how you can get involved with the listings there. That's a really important one as part of this Look for Local campaign. So get in touch with your local enterprise office to find out about that. But you might also look at things like Yelp, TripAdvisor if you're in hospitality, and maybe there's local newspapers or other online listings in your local or regional area that you can get involved with. And do pay attention to local search intent. So what people are looking for. Are they looking for information? So things like your opening hours or things like your menu. Do they want to find out something about you and your business? Do they want to do something, an activity? Maybe they want to actually come into your restaurant, for example, or are they looking to buy a product? And people will search for all of these things in slightly different ways, and the words that they use in the search term they type in will help us to understand that intent. So if you were looking to buy a cake, for example, for a friend's birthday, but he's gluten intolerant, you would specifically probably search for gluten-free cakes, and that's got very sort of purchase-heavy intent. That's clearly someone who's looking to buy. Whereas if somebody was looking to make a gluten-free cake, they would include words like recipe instead, and they would be maybe less relevant to you because they're not looking to buy the cake. If you're a baker, they're looking to make it themselves. So just some small changes in words can actually really give us a clue as to what the intent is here. So you can use tools like Google Trends, for example, analytics, which, as I said, we've got a whole webinar coming up on in 2 weeks, and also the keyword planner that I've already mentioned to find out more about how people local to you are searching, as well as people nationally too. So I've said we're not going to focus too much on ads today, but we do want to talk a bit about the difference between SEO and search engine marketing, or ads, or SEM, just so we understand how they interact with each other. So SEO, this is what we've been talking about so far, available at no charge, as in you're not paying a search engine to appear on that page. You might, of course, pay somebody to do SEO for you. You optimize your keywords. It can take time, though, to rank on Google. It's not the case that you'll build a whole website today and it's going to be at the top of Google tomorrow. It's definitely a long-term approach and a longer-term process. With SEM, you're paying for search listings, so you're paying in an auction type of process and bidding on specific keywords to show up with your ad. So it's a very different process behind the scenes. You're not writing content. You do have to write your ad, but you're not writing content on your own website. You're writing ads and listing them on Google Ads and telling Google which keywords you'd like to show up for. And that means that you can actually get onto the first page as soon as your ad is approved, again, depending on the competition levels. But there's nothing stopping you as soon as your ad is approved to appear on that first page. And this is why a lot of businesses will use both SEO and SEM. It's not, even though we say versus here, it's not a case of choosing one or the other. Your long-term approach may be focusing on SEO, and you may still use Google Ads, for example, at key times of year or to launch certain products and services, or as a consistent part of your marketing as well. So you can find the balance that works for you based on your budget and based on your sort of existing visibility and any new audiences you'd like to target, and thinking about the best approach for that. So let's see if we've had any more questions so far. Okay, we've got abandoned co-op, retail and garden centres. Can you recommend good third parties for letting customers leave reviews on your website? I would look for the ones that integrate best with your particular site. So it might be worth asking your website platform provider, if you do use one of the platforms or website providers, and they often have sort of an integration with specific providers. So it'd be worth checking what those are. So there might be a plugin, for example, that sits on your site. Otherwise, you can also look at integrating reviews that are coming in through things like Facebook and Google, so you can put those onto your site yourself. I'm guessing you're talking more about getting the reviews to appear directly. So I would look at what's compatible with your existing site. They might even have a plugin that you can use directly that isn't really a third party. So I would look at the support there and see what review sites are compatible if you're using, say, Squarespace, for example. Renata de Zen Healing Biodanza, I hope I pronounced that okay. How many keywords should be used? Is it unlimited or better to keep within limits? So a business that just does one thing is not going to have as many keywords as somebody who sells 100 different products. So rather than trying to choose an arbitrary number, I would look at keywords around each of your products and services, as well as your business type. If you just do one thing, say you do yoga classes specifically in Dublin, you don't do Pilates classes or anything else, you're only going to want to use keywords around that topic area. But if we were a bigger sort of fitness studio and we have a gym membership, we have yoga classes, we have dance classes, we have Pilates classes, then we're going to have a lot more keywords. So I wouldn't say there's a recommended number, but I would think about the key topics that match your products and services. So the more varied your business is, the more keywords you would have, is my quite general answer to that, unfortunately. But use the keyword planner or other research tools to find those keywords for each area. In terms of, I don't know if maybe you're asking about how many times you should use a keyword. There's a technique called keyword stuffing, which is something you might read about from years and years ago. It's not something that's considered to be a good SEO technique these days. In fact, it can actually harm your website because it can look a bit spammy. And to give an example of what I mean, if you were trying to show up for best compact cameras and you wrote a page that was called best compact cameras and you were saying to buy the best compact camera, you should check out our range of best compact cameras because you'll find the best compact camera. You can see how our rule of two applies here. So you're not writing that for the user. It looks very spammy, both to the user and to Google as well. So if you're talking more about how many times should you use keywords, you want to just build it in naturally, right for the user, but make sure you're including those key terms as you go. And Catriona, what are good ways of checking and measuring your user trust? I think reviews are a great way, but also if you're looking at before people have purchased and are they trusting you, you could look at things like checkout processes if you have those. Are people leaving at key points? If people are leaving at the payment point, it could be because they don't trust something at that stage. You can also do what's called user research or user experience research on your site. You might have experienced this before as a customer, where you get little boxes pop up as you're about to leave a site and saying, can you tell us why you're leaving? And running sort of a mini survey. Not something you'd run all the time, but if you find that, if you think there might be an issue there, it could be worth running and just maybe getting some direct feedback from customers as well. And they might say things like, oh, I didn't know how to do this, or this connection wasn't secure, or I got this alert from my browser, and it might just help you to pick up on some potential issues that they're finding there. So I hope that's been helpful. We will have more time for questions at the end as well. And for now, let's have a look at how to optimize your SEO strategy. So we're going to be looking at two different areas here, and the pillars of SEO, and on-page and off-page SEO. So just to make the distinction, what we mean by on and off-page. On-page SEO is all about ensuring that the code for your website, the content on your site itself, is optimized for search engines. And off-page SEO refers to activities off your site. So you have less control over, it's not happening on your site, but things like links that are coming back to your site and interactions with social networks that also might be linking through to your site as well. So on-page SEO is the stuff that you can manage yourself. Off-page is more about maybe building relationships with other websites, and also there's an element of that that's out of your control as well. So we'll look at the 3 and then 2 pillars for each of these to get a bit more information on how we could go about doing all of these things. So let's start with on-page. We've already talked about the importance of really high quality content that is relevant to your users, is helpful for them, and it's also original content too. I'm not sure we've mentioned that yet, but really important that you're writing your own original content. So all of these are elements of the sort of quality of your content. We've talked about keywords already. So what's the keywords people might be searching for, and creating content around those areas. Depending how many different products and services you have, this could be lots of different pages on your site, or it could be that you're quite a small business with one thing that you do really well, and you'll have a smaller number of maybe more more niche and specific keywords. You also want to make sure your content is relevant, not just the new content that you're writing, but also keeping content up to date, making sure it is really relevant. You're not just writing something because it's a trend, but it is actually relevant to your business. Because if you're writing content just because you think people might be searching for it, maybe you decide, for example, to write about the Euros at the moment, or you decide to write about COVID because you feel like these are things that people are searching for, you'd have to do it in a way that's actually relevant to your business. Otherwise, you're just not going to be attracting the right people. And it's also not all about text. We've talked a lot about writing content, but it can also include images, videos, maybe you have audio content, even animations. There's all sorts of other content that can bring your ideas to life and get your messages across to customers too. So let's look again at keywords, and this might help actually with the question we just had before about sort of the different types and how many keywords you should use. And there are lots of different types of keywords that people might use at different stages of their customer journey. So this example we have here, somebody starts off by searching for laptop or desktop computer, just a really general search. They clearly don't know yet exactly what they're looking for. Then they narrow it down to buy good laptop, and they're looking for maybe some suggestions. Later on, they narrow it down to a specific brand, in this case HP, and later on again to a specific model. And we could even get more specific. Maybe they're looking for blue laptop and a specific model number. So you can see how these get more specific as we go through. And there'll be a lot more people searching for just the word laptop than there will be for buy HP Envy laptop. It's just the way that we work. More people will make those vague searches, and then they'll branch off into their more specific searches later. So you can think about targeting audiences who are searching for the vague stuff or the more specific keywords. Most likely it's going to be somewhere in between, and a mixture of these different sort of lengths and a mixture of specific and non-specific keywords here. So you'll find you can target the sort of laptop keyword, but that's going to be much more competitive because you're competing there with anybody who sells a laptop or desktop computer for that particular search. Whereas later on, when it gets more specific, it's a bit more niche. There'll be fewer people searching, but the people who are searching are maybe a bit more ready to buy. They know what they want, and it's more specific to your own business as well. So you're competing with maybe fewer people because not everybody sells the exact same products and services as you. So it's a difference between restaurant and gluten-free, family-friendly restaurant. There's going to be a lot more competition for restaurants. There's going to be way more people searching for restaurants, but the people searching for gluten-free, family-friendly restaurants know exactly what they want. There'll be fewer of them, but they're way more likely then to actually engage with your business. So you can find a mixture of these different types of keywords for different stages of the journey, and you might write content around choosing the best laptop for that buy good laptop term, and then also having things like product pages that will appear for some of those more specific terms as well. When it comes to the title and the meta description or snippet we mentioned earlier, this is what's actually going on behind the scenes. You might never see this. It's likely that a lot of you are using some kind of website platform that you log into and you create your content there. You're not doing anything with the code at all yourself. So you might not ever see this, but this is what's happening behind the scenes. This is how Google effectively is reading your site. We can see the title at the top there, Air Max Trainers. We've got the description, embrace the past, present, and future, etc. And then we've got the first heading tag. And of course, underneath that, we might have some actual content on the page as well. And then this is what that looks like for the customer, for the searcher. We can see what they've typed in the top there, the product name. In the blue, we've got the Air Max Trainers, that headline that we saw. And we also have embrace the past, present, and future. So that's that meta description too. So this is where it's all appearing. And when they actually click through to your site, they'll see that page title up in the tab at the top of their browser as well. The meta description might not actually appear anywhere on the page itself. It might do, but it doesn't have to. So they might just see that here. So you can see the importance of writing it so that Google understands it, but also it has to make sense for a user. If we'd in the meta description just written Air Max Trainers, Air Max Shoes, size 10, men's, women's, a list of different potential keywords, that would not look good to the user when we get to this stage where they're seeing it in search results. So where you find these might look like this. You may have to go into the code, but it's more likely that you'll have, when you upload a new page to your site, you'll be able to write a title into a box somewhere, put your meta description into a box somewhere instead. If you do have to use the code, it's important to understand where the different elements might go before you start playing around with it. So underneath that, we might have these different heading tags. So again, you can see this in the code, but it's likely that you'll just be using some kind of text editor on your website to enter these instead. So you won't necessarily be putting in these tags into HTML yourself. And these go from most important to least important in kind of a hierarchy. So H1 would be the most important heading, the biggest heading of your page. Underneath that, you'd have any H2 tags splitting up sections. And then if you do have a lot of text, you might find yourself using even more subheadings within those sections as well. So all of this helps search engines to understand the page structure, what's in each section. So the heading, the H1, H2, H3 headings for each section should really tell you what's going on in that section. So try and make it something that's, again, readable for a user, but understandable by a search engine as well. This can also be really important for accessibility for screen readers, for example, that can give an outline of the whole page using these heading tags, and that can help people to skip to the section they'd like. So it's very useful for customers who have access requirements too. So some HTML structural advice for videos here and photos. Videos and photos aren't viewed the same way by search engines as they are by humans. So it's really important that you use descriptive names for your images. If you upload an image directly, you might see that it says IMG_57903. That doesn't tell users or search engines what that page is about, what that image is about. So do try and use a descriptive name. It's also going to be helpful for you later if you need to know which file corresponds to which image too. So we can see that this image on the right here, we've called it 3 old wooden carts. So that's a nice descriptive title. We know exactly what's going to be in there. You can use alt text or alt tags as well to help people, again, understand. And that's also good for accessibility too, but also can appear if your image doesn't load for whatever reason. Try not to use flash content. It's unlikely that you would be now if you're uploading new content, but you might also want to review if your site's been around for a while, is there any old flash content, because that can't be indexed by crawlers in the same way. You also want to avoid things like putting a lot of text into images, things like your menu. You might need to do that, but just be aware that if you do that, it might be that search engines can't read. They can't read the text in an image the same way they can standard text on a page. And try to avoid large image files that can really slow down the site. That's not great for usability and for user experience if your site is taking ages to load. I'm sure we've all experienced that before, where we've loaded a site and then everything's skipping around because all the images are loading at different times. So you do want your images to be good quality, but they don't need to be print quality or original quality. They can be good web quality and still be quicker to load. You might be able to resize these on your own computer. You might need a separate program. Some website platforms or plugins can actually do this for you as well. So make sure you're double checking if any pages are being slowed down by images. So we talked about the indexing process already, in that crawling, indexing, and then what happens when somebody searches. And one of the ways you mentioned earlier, I said we'll come back to, is uploading that sitemap to make that crawling process easier. There's 2 different types of sitemaps. There's one that might appear on your site, this one we have on the left, and this is an HTML sitemap. It appears actually on your site, and the goal is to help users to find their way around the site, really. That's the main goal of this. So very useful, but not in the same sense as the sitemap we're talking about now, which is the XML sitemap. So an XML sitemap is just usually given to search engines. So you can do this through Google Search Console. Bing have a tool called Webmaster Tools where you can submit your sitemap to them as well. And you can also look at any other search engines and see if they have the option to submit the sitemap too. The more the merrier here. So do submit your sitemap to any search engine in the countries that your customers might be in. And this is not as readable. You can see it's not something you'd expect a human to read. And it's effectively code that's going to help a search engine to understand where to find your different pages and how they're all sort of linked to each other, the priority levels as well. So you might find that your site already has some kind of XML sitemap that's been created automatically as part of your template. There might be a plugin you can use, or there's also plenty of tools where you can go and type in create XML sitemap to Google, and you'll find loads of different tools that can make that for you. So you'll get a link then that you can upload the sitemap to your site and then share the link with Google or Bing. So let's talk about some tools. We've already mentioned a couple of them, but this is hopefully a helpful roundup if you're looking at getting started with SEO or optimizing your SEO strategy, and some of the things you might want to consider. Firstly, measuring your site speed. So if you want to identify any slower pages or any issues slowing down your pages, you can use a tool called Google Page Speed Insights. This analyzes the content of your site and can give you some suggestions. So maybe you have a plugin that's slowing something down. Maybe there's a massive image that you could shrink a bit. There's also the mobile Test My Site tool as well. So this tests specifically your site speed on mobile, and again gives you some great suggestions to improve how quickly your website might be loading on a mobile device. And people have really short attention spans on mobile. 53% of mobile website visitors will leave if your page doesn't load within 3 seconds. So really useful one to check. You might find some easy fixes. You might find some more technical fixes that you need support with as well, but hopefully you'll be some that you can get to work on straight away to improve your site speed. We've already talked a bit about keyword research, the keyword planner, and also analysing consumer search trends through tools like Google Trends as well. Both of these available at no charge and something that can be really helpful part of your SEO toolkit. And you can track your site's SEO performance using lots of different tools. So we've mentioned Google Search Console. We've also mentioned Bing Webmaster Tools because each only provide the data for their own search engine. So you will need both. It's not a case of picking one. But there's plenty of other tools that are available at no charge, as well as premium tools that you can use to track your site's SEO performance. The level you go for here really depends how big SEO is going to be part of your marketing strategy. You might want one of the really big multi-featured tools that helps you to manage all of your content and track things like links to your site. Or you might be happy with the ones like Search Console and Bing Webmaster Tools that give you great insight into how you're appearing on those search engines. But let's talk about the off-page techniques as well before we come to our final Q&A. Firstly, link building. So this is the process of getting links to your site from other relevant sites. And the first thing to say here is the best technique is just to create content that people want to share. Create interesting content that shares unique insight or maybe even research, and something that's entertaining or funny. It doesn't really matter why they want to share it, but create content that people will want to share, and you're more likely to attract those links anyway. So that's the simple approach really, is making sure you're creating content that people want to link to. Do share links on your own website, so link back to your own pages where relevant. So if you've written a blog post and there's another relevant blog post that they might want to read next, you can link through to that. And also link from your own social media profiles too. You can invite people to engage with your site directly, so invite them to write a review or write a blog post. You might work with, say, influencers or work with press as well. Going a bit outside of SEO here, but online PR can be a really great way to build links as well. And do create links out of your site as well, so link to other resources and pages that you find relevant. That will help to show Google that you're searching to useful and trustworthy external sites too. Some of the don'ts here: don't pay for links. If you're paying for links, then you do need to tag these as sort of paid for links. Search engines aren't as big a fan of these, and they can actually have a negative influence on your findability because it's not seen as a natural link. Somebody's not linking to you because they want to or because they find your content great, but just because you paid for it instead. So it's a very different approach. It's more like advertising than SEO in that case. Don't add links to your site unsolicitedly on forums, in your forum signature, in replies to other people on things like Facebook. You see this all the time, right? With people spamming other people's content, saying great content, but then they put in a link to their site. That's not really link building, and you're probably not going to be getting in front of the right people either. And don't use link exchange programs where you agree to link to somebody's site and they link back to you. Firstly, they might not be the most relevant site or the most trustworthy themselves. And secondly, it's likely that it's just not a relevant link to include. You're just including it because you've got this agreement. Try only to link out to sites that are actually useful to your customers. And finally, social media. So there is even though it's a separate channel, there is an impact that social media has on SEO. Social networks can be a great source of reviews, which show trustworthiness, but also a great way of you linking and other people linking through to your site, getting that traffic through to your site too. So you always have a place in your profile somewhere, depending which social platform we're looking at, to put a link to your website. Make sure you're always making use of that. And you might also be able to link from individual social media posts to your site too. So try and utilize relationships as well on social media to work with influential bloggers, influencers, other people in your industry publications, and build those relationships, and you're more likely to get those links back to your site from them as well. So let's look at any final questions that have come in. Okay, Velvet Cloud Sheep's Milk. Does Google's algorithm understand video or sound? I thought it was just text. It's a tricky question because tech is getting better at understanding video all the time. You'll see this in things like YouTube search at the moment, for example. If you search for a video in Google, you'll see that Google's actually able to pull up not just videos that are relevant, but specific parts of the video. So it's actually able to read those videos almost, interpret the words and understand the different sections. So it is definitely changing over time as to how the algorithm is understanding video. So it used to just rely really on the title and description of the video. Now it is definitely getting better. And same for podcasts as well. You'll see actually pulling out specific parts of podcasts to recommend when you search. So definitely changing over time. I can't tell you exactly how it reads sort of video or sound, but certainly things like text are really important still. The title of the video, description of the video are still really important for understanding. So that's something I would really focus on when it comes to creating any video content, the same way that you would for images too. We've got Lots Furnishings asking, what size images would you recommend for catalogue pages? It depends on the template and theme that you're using. There's normally a sort of set space for your image in a theme. So I would work off that to start with, and maybe the theme that you have has suggestions there. But otherwise, I would use the Page Speed Insights tool just to check if there's any images on your site or page that are maybe slowing down, and that could be an indication to make it smaller. So you've got two elements: what's the maximum size you can do without slowing it down, and also what size actually makes sense for the spot that the image has to go in on your page. So I would look at that first. You still want the image to look nice within the template you're using, but also you can always maybe try and flatten the image a bit and reduce the quality if it's still too big. So there's not a set size. It really does depend on your layout, but just something to think about. To use the Page Speed Insights tool to check if there's any images that might need an extra nudge to speed up your page a bit. So they're the questions I can see at the moment. I'm going to move on to our next steps, and then we should have a bit of time to come back if there's any questions that come in at the last minute. So we've already mentioned this, but I do want to come back to this as a reminder. This is the new Google for Small Business website, google.com/smallbusiness, and the link is in the description below this video. This is your one-stop shop to find information on products, tools, training to help move your business forward. We've got an online success guide, lots of tips around COVID-19, and also tools that your business can make use of as well. And if you would like to continue your learning, there's a few different options we have here, depending what you want to learn next. If you'd like your business to be included in the local enterprise office, look for local national listings, and then do contact your local enterprise office to find out how. There's also key supports like Trading Online Vouchers that they can tell you about as well. So do get in touch with your local enterprise office for more information about those. If you're interested in more training from us, then we do hope you'll join us for the next 2 webinars in this series. We've got websites next week and analytics the week after. I think that's the right way around. So I do hope you'll join us for one or both of those. And again, if you've missed the previous 2 in this series, or you want to rewatch this one, these will be available on your local enterprise office YouTube channel as well. We also have a number of other webinars, so if you check g.co/digitalgaragewebinars-ie, you can keep up to date with any of our other webinars coming up outside of just this series. And you can also find our online learning platform too, where you can access online courses in your own time. So these aren't scheduled, you can drop in and out of them as you'd like to, sort of self-paced learning. And these cover a number of digital marketing sort of modules and topics. And that's at g.co/digitalgarage-ie. So I do hope you'll join us for some of those. As we mentioned before, we do have a feedback form you can fill in that Sarah will share, and it's also in the description below this video. And that will give you access to the PDF of today's content. And you will be able to rewatch this video as well, I think using this link or on the YouTube channel too. Thanks so much for joining us today. and we hope to see you again soon.